Hey there, how is it going today? I wanted to take a moment or two and just rant a little bit about current events in the United States and this new presidential administration. I'm going to get straight to the point. So called conservatives are trying to run black people out of the workforce. Now, I'm middle aged, and so I've kind of observed things for quite a while now. And I mean, history will back up what I'm about to say, fairly recent history. First of all, I believe that union manufacturing that did a lot to establish a black middle class in America. And a lot of union labor jobs have it's kind of dwindled. I mean, those jobs are not as plentiful as they used to be, and I'm particularly talking about um, like assembly line jobs, not so much skilled labor as much as like assembly line job, something that somebody could apply for without a lot of training, get trained on the job, and make a pretty good living, especially over time. Um, I am from Detroit originally. My father was an auto worker for one of the big three. He's baby boom age, and he was in that kind of golden era of auto workers and manufacturing and union labor. And I remember, I would say maybe in the 90s or early 2000s, there was kind of a push to kind of look down on auto workers and union labor. They were kind of demonized a little bit, and uh, they were spoken of, as greedy and, overpaid and things like that. And they were, causing a hardship for the big three. Well, now the same thing is happening with these federal workers. And it's wild to me, it's wild to listen to some of this some of this social media rhetoric where people are kind of dragging people through the mud for working a cubicle job. I mean, give me a break. And people are complaining, I don't want my tax dollars going to support these people. And I do not understand it. I mean, it's a good, honest job. To me, I do not see the problem. I mean, the federal government provides services and people need to work in order to provide those services. So I don't see the problem. But anyway, the federal government hires a lot of black people. I've seen a lot of black people um, get federal jobs and have successful careers and have retirements and savings and, good, stable jobs. And now um, Trump and Musk, now they're saying that they want to reduce the federal workforce. And they're claiming that they want to cut government waste. But why would you start with the workforce? I mean, surely there are some other places where you could trim some fat. That's bizarre. They did not have to start with cutting people's jobs, especially some of these, like the people that they're laying off. They're people, a lot of them are fairly new, that have been with the government for like 3 years or less. They're not necessarily making, tons of money. So, I mean, yeah, you would have to cut a lot of them, which is what they're doing, in order to actually put a dent in the budget. And so I just think that it's just ridiculous and it's a sham. They're trying to cut an entity that has hired a lot of black people and where black people have found some success. I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and I was looking at the news a day or two ago, and they were showing IRS workers that got laid off. And I guess a lot of these people work from home or they have the option to work from home. They had to bring in the laptop that they were probably issued and maybe a badge or something, but it was company materials. Sorry. My allergies are acting up again. And then they were fired after that. And so they were kind of giving some people some advice and some information. And that scene was on the news. Most of that was young black people. And anyway, I just thought that that was kind of interesting. The military is another one. Um, Recruiters are being discouraged from recruiting in areas where they would run across a lot of young black people to try and recruit into the military, like black colleges and such. The military is another place where a lot of black people have found meaningful, successful careers that offered them some financial stability. Now, I live in, like I said, Kansas City, Missouri. The Attorney General of Missouri filed a lawsuit against Starbucks because, well, okay, I have a theory, but never mind my theory. Evidently, Starbucks has some sort of a DEI type program, or at least that's what the AG of Missouri is calling it. And Starbucks, it says, no, I mean, there is kind of a career training and career development program, but anyone can be a part of it. My theory is that, let's say the attorney general of Missouri or someone else went through the airport Starbucks and they saw a lot of black women working there. And they probably saw that frequently, as they saw a lot of black women working there, because the Attorney General of Missouri, sorry, I know this is gross, but I'm struggling. I gotta do what I gotta do. And this is me covering the company logo, and at my job, that'll get you fired. Wearing a shirt with the company logo. I'm pretty sure you can do anything else. Have a OnlyFans, get into a fight video, a Karen video. I don't know that they'll bother you as long as you don't do it with anything that says their name. So I need to be careful. Excuse me. But anyway, my theory is that the Attorney General of Missouri, or people like that, these alt-right people in high places of influence, probably saw too many black women working at Starbucks, and then they were like, well, where are all the white men? Are all the white men being shut out? It's nonsense. And so they took offense to that, and then they're like, they're going to try and close down that avenue of employment for minorities. So, yeah, that's really what I believe is going on. And as far as the Attorney General's concerned, there's probably not that many white men that want to go work at Starbucks, because this society and this culture that we live in America, it already offers the best opportunities to white men. I mean, if a white man works at a Starbucks, a lot of the time he's probably a part of the LGBT community, just like retail and other food service businesses. And even then, especially if he's a white male, he'll be the one in the management position. I noticed that when I worked in retail quite a bit, maybe about 15 years ago, at some of those stores in the mall, like Charlotte Russe and Wet Seal and stuff like that, I would go in there and I would see a white male manager who seemed like he was gay, and then he was the boss of kind of a diverse group of women. So, I mean, working at Starbucks, that is not a really prestigious, high dollar career. I think that they offer some good things like health insurance for part-time employment and such, like, and things like that. So that could help out a lot of people. But it's not some illustrious career, even though I know that recently some of them have become unionized, and some of those union stores have had problems with the company. But anyway, yeah, I really think that these Republicans are really trying to hinder employment. Same thing with schools. That's another avenue in, I mean, even like generations back. Education is a place where a black person, particularly a black woman, could find a respectable career. And if they get rid of the Department of Education and privatize all the schools, who knows what's going to happen then? I don't think that that will be a good thing for anyone. But yeah, I believe that they are really trying to hinder sectors of the job market where black people have thrived. And I noticed it long ago when it comes to union labor. Like I said, I am from Detroit. I grew up in a city just outside of Detroit. I went to a high school that was about 85% black. When I think of the people that I grew up around, there was one exception. There was one family that was an exception. Every single person who I went to school with had at least one parent who worked in the auto industry. And where I grew up, I would describe it as kind of a working class and middle class community. In the city, there were some more affluent neighborhoods. There were some more, or I'll say less prosperous neighborhoods, but that's kind of how I would describe it. And it was all due to union labor. And in my generation, I'm Gen X, our parents were all in that golden era too. But, you know, the powers that be probably you or people from the big three, you know, they got the message out that union labor is bad and the unions were terrible and union laborers were bad, greedy people and materialistic people. And even as a very young person, I was like, okay, great. I mean, someone makes enough money to have a vacation home up north, good for them. But other people have a problem with that. Now, the auto industry, people who've gotten into it over the last few years, it's not as good as it was. On the news, there have been people who work for the auto industry and they've been on strike even in the last year or two, and they talked about some of their working conditions, and it is absolutely nothing like what people like my father and other people of that generation were offered. Oh, and another thing was when I was younger, I remember a lot of jobs like being a garbage man and other kind of like local government jobs paid really well, offered a lot of security, and Republicans went and, you know, privatized a lot of that. So again, that's another opportunity that kind of fell by the wayside. And if anyone ever asks why I vote Democrat, this is it right here. And people who say, well, what they ever do for black people? Well, you know, I'm explaining. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, hey, look it up for yourself. What I'm saying right now can be backed up with numbers. And I'm just speaking from my life observations. I'm not citing sources, you know, specific sources, but if you don't believe me, feel free to do that for yourself. So, yeah, like all of the various avenues where black people have been able to, you know, make a living for themselves, a lot of that is kind of getting challenged. And this whole like merit-based society, that's a bunch of who shot John. That's a bunch of word games and word salad. All they did was, and it's done, it's a done deal. Trump did it with an executive order. They took away the protections that protected classes of people had against discrimination in the workforce. And, you know, if you feel like you've been discriminated, the EEOC was ordered to stop all investigations. So there's no, nothing that you can appeal to if you feel like you have been discriminated against. And because of what black people have gone through and established, a lot of other people have benefited. The LGBT community, people who are born in different countries, people of various religions have all benefited. All of that is being kind of thrown by the wayside. And they want this so called meritocracy, but look at these policymakers. They're not impressive people. Even these people who went to these Ivy League schools, they go and they act like they've never read the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. More on that later. But the thing is about this so called merit based society is no one's really all that special. So it's like, okay, how much merit can you expect from a person, and for what? I mean, how much merit do you really need to have to go and, I don't know, have a cubicle job or work in a factory? This is terrible. This is going to be a bunch of who shot John. This is going to be a nightmare, and it will, I believe, definitely benefit certain groups of people, and it will definitely harm other groups of people, specifically black people and other people that have been protected under the civil rights movement. So there is that. Another thing, I just got done listening to a audiobook, and it is called American Heretic. That's, yeah, American Heretics, excuse me, by Jerome E. Kopolsky. Very interesting book. It kind of confirms a lot of things that I believe for a long time. Pretty much what it confirms is that a lot of so-called conservatives and conservative Christians, Christian nationalists, whatever you want to call them, they do not believe in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. I mean, they really don't believe in it, and they haven't come out and said that, but they don't believe in it. They think that it's too liberal, and they believe in, quote, social order, and Christianity is supposed to help uphold that structure and maintain that social order. And this book was very interesting. That is what Jefferson Davis and the Confederates believed. And yeah, so that's what we need to push up against. They just believe in a, quote, social order. You can guess who's on the top of it and who's on the bottom. And they really don't believe in the Constitution, because if you think about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, it was very, very progressive for its time. And it was taking a stance against politics in medieval Europe, which was all run by royal families and, you know, kings and queens. So that is what the people who wrote the Constitution pushed back against. Oh, and also religion was heavily involved in medieval European politics as well. And so that is what the Constitution and Bill of Rights pushes against. Now, social order. Yeah, I mean, there does need to be some order, some expectations. I do not think that it's fair to expect everyone to have a racially stratified, culture and society, which is really what I believe that these so-called conservatives want. I do think that, there has to be a certain level of politeness, respect, respect for the law, etc. I'm not against that. And I do think that studying the Bible and having just kind of a biblical foundation, that should be enough. Because, I mean, if you're going to have freedom, there needs to be some personal integrity, but it does need to be personal integrity. And I feel like Christians probably dropped the ball there in many, many ways. And yeah, I think that they kind of dropped the ball and did not maintain that integrity. And, now we have so-called Christians wanting to make religion the law and enforce it through, you know, military might and the legal system. So I, I don't think that that's a good thing at all, because even in the Bible, I mean, people had a choice. Even in the Bible, I mean, people made a choice to choose Jesus or not, like the men who were crucified with Christ. One of them chose to follow him, the other one did not. So there's always been a choice. And I feel like Christians just kind of need to respect that, yeah, people can choose a different faith, they can choose no faith. But I just really feel like if Christians are doing what they're supposed to do, more oftentimes than not, I think that that would be enough to kind of maintain like social order. And then there needs to be a strong economy so that people have opportunities to make a living. That's what I think. That's all that I think that needs to happen. And then after that, people should be able to, live their lives how they want and pursue happiness how they deem fit, not some kind of like social order. So yeah, there are my thoughts on that. That's kind of been on my mind. And there currently is a comment on one of the video, or a couple of videos. She left 3 comments. There's a comment on the video that's kind of my intro video, and someone says, "Oh, you can't be a Democrat and a Christian." That's very foolish. I can't believe that she said that. American politics are not going to save anyone or damn anyone to hell. The Bible was around long before the United States of America was, and the American political system is man-made. So that was a very foolish, non-biblical statement that woman made. She made a couple of rude comments about me. Whatever. I don't really care. But I just wanted to address that because that is non-biblical. And she says, "Oh, sweetheart, I'll pray for you." Pray for me in Jesus' name. If you are going to pray for me in Jesus' name, I'm all for it. Do not pray for me in Trump's name, because that is false. That is idol worship. That is breaking the 10 Commandments, and I want nothing to do with that. So, yeah, I think that that's all I have to say for now. I just kind of needed to rant a little bit about politics and address that comment that was on my page. And there was another lovely comment from American Samoa. Somebody just said, "Hey, have a great day." She put that up there the other day. And so I wanted to say hello to American Samoa. I'm sure it's lovely there. Far lovelier than it is here in the Midwest, where it is very cold and there's, nasty snow on the ground that's been driven through and is all frozen over, and it's kind of gross. And it's going to warm up some next week, but then it's going to rain on it. So we're just in a slushy, dirty mess around here. But anyway, that's all I have to say. These Republicans are bad news. I really think that Black people really need to pay attention to what's going on, focus on what's going on, because the powers that be, they're really trying to squeeze Black people out of the job market. Again, union manufacturing. A lot of Black people made very comfortable livings there. That's kind of changed a lot, and it's dwindled. A lot's gone overseas, and that's changed a lot. That is not the opportunity that it was. Trump and his administration are trying to keep Black people and women out of the military. Everyone knows that the military, I mean, if you can hang with it, there are some good benefits. They're trying to squeeze Black people out of that. Even Starbucks, the AG from Missouri wants to try and squeeze people out of that. The school system, trying to, change that altogether. Let's see, I think that's all and the federal government. And they, every single time when you hear social media rhetoric in regards to those kind of occupations, it's always very disrespectful. They're always looked down upon, made out to be like greedy or lazy or something. And then they take away the opportunity, so it's not as much of a good opportunity as it was. Even the military has this Hegseth person that they have um, over the military. They're trying to push out, the generals and some of these people that are very accomplished in the military, and some of them are black men. Oh, yeah, they're trying to make the military, quote, anti DEI. To my understanding, I've never served in the military. The DEI is very, quote, merit based. But now they're saying that it's too like DEI. They're trying to get rid of some of those really high ranking black people, is what they're trying to do. And keep in mind, when Trump wrote that executive order already stated that, one, you can't really sue at this point, and now there are no laws really protecting anyone on the federal level from discrimination. So it is a mess. They are trying to push black people out of the workforce, and beyond that, they're trying to reduce programs like Medicaid and Medicare, Social Security, the SNAP program. And I mean, yes, there are more white people that take advantage of those programs, but disproportionately, I would say a lot more in a relationship to the population. There are a lot of black people on those programs. So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to point that out. So, pay attention, make plans, watch these politicians very closely, because even if you say, hey, I don't like politics, it doesn't interest me, it doesn't really matter, because there's someone else who has been empowered, and they are going to make decisions that can affect you and your life. So there is that. I don't think that I have anything else to say right now, but best wishes. I certainly hope that Trump's plans fail. They're not beneficial to a person like me, people that I'm related to, people that I know, or anyone else that is working class. However, some people that are working class or quote middle class, don't seem to realize that, so I'm not going to worry about them. I'm not. There's a lot of videos out right now that are all about, Trump supporters who regret their vote. I don't care. That does absolutely nothing for me. I do not care. I don't even watch those people crying and saying how they regret their vote and they're angry, and it means nothing to me at this point. Just, deal with it. If we get to vote in 4 years, then, just try and make a different choice then. Oh, and another thing, one thing that I've kind of noticed over the last few years is politicians talking about how certain politicians need to be removed. Now, the whole democratic system is set up so after a certain interval of time, if a elected official isn't doing a good job, then they could just simply not be elected again. And that's that. In Missouri, again, the Attorney General of Missouri, well, he didn't remove her, but they pretty much bullied her out of her position. And I can't think of the woman's name right now, but I want to say she was the prosecutor in St. Louis. I'm sorry, this just came to my mind. I really should have looked that up. Gardner, whatever her title was. She was some sort of a lawyer. They pushed her out. But what she did was she prosecuted, remember those two middle-aged couple that was outside with the guns during the Black Lives Matter protest in St. Louis? Well, she prosecuted them. So I'm sure they have friends in high places, and she was pretty much bullied into resigning. So she was removed. People were like, Kim Garner, that's her name. Oh, she should be removed. She was elected by the people of St. Louis. So I take real offense to that because the voters of St. Louis, they were completely undermined. Now, in the state of New York, and I'm not following whatever's going on in New York with the mayor over there, the mayor of New York City, but the governor of New York says that she's not going to remove Eric Adams, but she is going to limit his power. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And she has problems of her own in New York State, so she really needs to kind of worry about her own problems. But it's just interesting to me how all these people just want all these politicians removed. And you know what? They're usually black politicians. Now, I am a news junkie. I listen to a lot of local news from around America. That is happening a lot with a lot of black mayors and a lot of black people that sit on city councils in, fairly small cities. It is happening all over the place, and I'm pretty sure it's a coordinated effort. There's that one girl in Illinois. She's a black lady mayor, and she does sound like she's a little bit of a hustler, and her friends are pretty thuggish, and she put them in positions in this small town government. And conservatives are just obsessed with this girl. They're absolutely obsessed with her. And she does sound like she's a hustler, and she's like hustling that town. Okay, but I mean, I don't live in that town, so it's not really my issue. But this girl, she's a pretty young black lady. They're obsessed with her, and she is on the news all the time. The mayor of New Orleans is another one. Oh yeah, and they're really obsessed with when it's a black woman, her personal life. I've noticed that, like, her personal life ends up becoming an issue. So yeah. Oh, back to New York. Now, Eric Adams, I don't like him. To me, he seems like a flunky. He seemed like a flunky right away. I remember Eric Adams got elected. And so, like a month and a half later, I was watching the New Year's Rockin' Eve, the year that he got elected. And then here he comes, and he's on the New Year's Rockin' Eve with like Ryan Seacrest. Now, I love New Year's Rockin' Eve. It's something that I've watched like my whole life, since childhood. Never in my life ever have I ever seen the mayor of New York participate in that little dropping of the ball ceremony. I mean, you are the mayor of New York City. Why would you have time for such nonsense? And he's been involved with a lot of nonsense. He's been involved with a lot of social media nonsense. I remember when I used to be on Twitter, I followed him, and one time, I thought this was so degrading. He was on the subway in New York with a trash bag, picking up trash. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're the mayor of New York. Why would you do such a thing? I also thought it was very ridiculous that he would give press conferences on like street crimes. And I was just like, why is that not someone else's job to be the press secretary for the mayor of New York City? If they want to address kind of a high profile crime or crime trend or something like that, they could have hired me. I would have done it. But I just thought it was ridiculous that the mayor of New York was addressing this nonsense himself. So to me, you could kind of tell that he was a flunky. And now it's almost being proven that he's a flunky. And I haven't really gotten into the corruption charges against him. I know there was some sexual like allegations against him, sexual misconduct allegations that popped up. And then he presented his wife, his middle-aged black wife, which I didn't even know existed before these allegations popped up. And then the allegations just went away. Never saw the wife again. Well, you know what? I may have because he went to the Met Gala once and he looked sharp. He looked good. And he had a woman with him. Then I'm assuming that that was the same wife. I don't know. I'm not going to go back and like research and try and figure it out as the same one. I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt and be like, yeah, okay. But yeah, the governor of New York is like, who is a Democrat, supposedly says, well, I won't remove him. I'll do him a favor. I'm just going to limit his power. I don't know why she's mad. Well, yeah, it has to do with that congestion pricing. I'm not going to go get all into that because Trump went and did overturn that. But she needs to go be mad at Trump if she's going to be mad at anyone because Trump is the one that made the decision. But oh yeah, and now like prisoners in one of the New York prisons are revolting, but that would be her fault because I mean we've been hearing about Rikers being a problem for years, so you know, and I'm pretty sure that would fall under the state jurisdiction as opposed to the city of New York. But anyway, yeah, I just think it's interesting how all the time, and I see it a lot on the internet, on these comments, they're like, remove her. We'll just remove her. Remove him. And it's just like, there's a process, let them finish their term and then let the voters pick someone else if they don't like this person. They're like, remove them. So yeah, this country is just a mess. But according to that book that I just recommended to you, American Heretics, so-called conservatives, they don't agree with the Constitution anyway because they feel like it's too liberal and it kind of upsets what they think is the social order, which is what someone like Jefferson Davis wanted. So I don't know. God bless us. God help us. Black people plug in. Just pay attention. Just pay attention. Observe. Observe. Connect dots. So, anyway, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. TGIF. Thank you for watching. I think that I covered it all. And I said it earlier, but I'm going to say it again. This meritocracy nonsense is not going to work because no one's all that special. Like, you can't do anything to really make you stand out for other people in most of these regular jobs. And I guess this whole like prove your merit thing, that explains why the interview processes on these jobs are just so squirrely and goofy. And it almost feels like a really awkward first date as opposed to just getting down to business and talking about what you can do, what you have done, like what kind of skills do you have. They want to sit here and act like, oh my God, are you worthy? And that also kind of probably explains why a lot of these jobs feel like cults and sororities, and you almost feel like you're being hazed. There is a Asian gentleman, he very young, I believe he's still a teenager, and he applied for 16 different schools in yeah, just like 16 different schools. Well, anyway, he's suing the system in California because he didn't get accepted into any of these schools, and he had a very high SAT score, he had a very high grade point average, but he was rejected. However, I mean, grade point averages only get so high and test scores only get so high. So when you're talking about elite students, there's only so far you can go. Like at a certain point, everyone has the same numbers. Everyone's putting up the same numbers. So, I mean, and they're getting applications probably from all around the world. So, he's filing that lawsuit because feels like he's being discriminated against. But listen, all you're doing is applying to college. They only have so much to offer. I mean, there's not that much that you're going to do to make yourself stand out, honestly. And besides that, when it comes to elite schools, a lot of that comes down to like donors and stuff like that anyway. So, the rapper Dr. Dre, he made a huge donation, at some point to, I think it was UCLA. His daughter got in. So there you have it. There you have it. So thank you for listening to this rambling. This has gone on for 40 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off now. Thanks again for watching, and just pay attention and just listen to things that are going on right now, especially for Black people, because they are trying to push Black people out of the workforce. And they're trying to push all these immigrants out that I believe that they recruited in, and I guess they just want Black people to go and, pick crops and whatever. Not that I have a problem with that, but I don't know. My grandparents did that, and actually my mom did that growing up in a sharecropping family. So, yeah, we want progress. We don't want to make America great again. America's really, despite everything that I've been talking about, America really is a nice country with a lot of potential, but we want progress. We want civilization. We want to realize what the writers of the founding documents said, as far as everyone, having the opportunity to realize their potential and pursue their happiness as they see fit, not according to some social order that white supremacists decided on based on their poor interpretation of the Bible. So anyway, for real, I'm getting out of here. Let me just push this button and go, bye, have a great weekend.